Good afternoon, everybody. This 4:30 press conference was advertised heavily at the beginning of the week, and I had the full intention today to tell you how absolutely monstrous it is that elections for millions of people all over this country are being cancelled, in some cases for the second year in a row. And whilst it's the Labour government that have opened up this option, it is, of course, the Conservative Party themselves who've chosen to postpone in 3 counties for the second year in a row. And the holier-than-thou Lib Dems also want a cancellation to go ahead in Cheltenham. So the point of this press conference was to launch a legal paper to show you how serious we were. And I was going to launch a judicial review. But I'm going to save that for a couple of days because one or two other things appear to have happened this morning. All, I think, predicated around today's 4:30 press conference. Now, I'm not for one moment going to tell you that I'd not been talking to a certain Robert Jenrick for some weeks, some months, as indeed I've been talking to many, many other senior Conservative figures, and incidentally, some Labour ones as well. There'll be a Labour defection next week, which you'll all be invited to. But I have been talking to some very senior Conservatives, and the reason is very simple. They all know that after May the 7th, despite whatever attempt there may be at the moment, and yes, of course, Kemi's doing better up against Keir Starmer at PMQs, and talk of a Kemi bounce, and all the rest of it, but the realists know that after May the 7th, the Conservative Party will cease to be a national political party. That is just how serious the situation is. And there are many who genuinely want to realign the sensible centre-right in this country, and they increasingly believe the only way to do that is for Reform to become the dominant party. Now, you may argue, already we're the dominant party in the polls. So, yes, I had been talking to Robert Jenrick. I had been talking to many other people as well. You saw one earlier this week, Nadeem Zahawi, a former chairman and indeed Chancellor of the Exchequer. But let me make it absolutely clear that when it leaked out of Robert Jenrick's office that he'd been preparing some notes and thoughts about what he would do, what he would say, how he would play it when he came, he wasn't going to join at 4:30 today. No, I'm sorry, Kemi, you've jumped the gun. You've added up 2 and 2 and made 5. He wasn't going to join today. He wasn't going to join tomorrow. He wasn't going to join next week. In fact, knowing what these negotiations are like, he might not have joined at all. I think on balance, it's 60-40 that he would have done. But you never know until the deal is signed and the hand is shaken. So the Conservative leadership have jumped the gun on this. They've hoofed him out of the party, fearing he would appear today at 4:30 on this platform alongside me, and I've had to think very quickly as to how I should respond to this. And I just want to say thank you to Kemi Badenoch. This is the latest Christmas present I've ever had. The negotiations with Jenrick are over. There's nothing more to be said or to be done. You've handed me on a plate the man that is by far the most popular figure, 60% approval rating on Con Home compared to our own 38. And you've perhaps today really done anything, more than anybody in history, to help realign the centre-right of British politics, which is much needed against a dreadful Labour government and an increasingly worrying extreme left-wing voice in this country. So I can't offer you drinks all round, but I'll buy Kemi lunch next week and say thank you. And on that note, I will welcome Robert Jenrick into this room and into Reform UK. Oh, right. He hasn't changed his mind, has he? We can't find him. Is he coming, Nick? It's been a funny, this would be a very funny end of the day, wouldn't it? this really would put the tin lid on the whole thing. As you can tell, normally, when I unveil defections, it's all perfectly planned. Nothing ever leaks, and I'm known for nothing ever leaking. But this circumstance has been sprung upon us for reasons that were not under my own control, sadly. Do we play music now, or what do we do? No. OK, folks, don't worry. I've just had the thumbs up. He hasn't changed his mind. Kemi hasn't called him and asked him back. Oddly, she never called him in the first place. She left it to the chief whip to do so, which I did find very, very odd. But yeah, as I say, one more point before he comes. There's a lot of speculation in the media about who may or may not defect to us. Are they doing it for their own purposes? Are they a benefit to us? May the 7th, folks, if you're in Parliament, is the deadline. If you're coming to us, do it before May the 7th. We don't want you after that. Let me make that very, very clear to everybody in the room. Here he is, Robert Jenrick. I didn't know where you got to. I wanted you to change your mind. I was getting a bit worried about it, to be honest with you. Here we are, the scrum. Come on, guys.
Both to this one, please, guys.
Okay, yeah, don't worry, you'll all get a go.
Amazing, thank you. Nigel, just come this way.
Yes, okay, no problem. You'll all get a go. We're very generous people.
Over here, please, Jen.
Okay.
Just here as well, please, Jen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And me as well, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Right. You've had 2 goes. Marvellous. Off we go.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Nigel. It's time for the truth. Britain has been in decline. Britain is in decline. From 1970 to 2007, real wages went down by 1/3 every 10 years. Since then, they flatlined. At the turn of the millennium, the average Brit was earning more than twice as much as the average Pole. By 2031, we're on track to be poorer. Outside of London and the southeast, our economy is closer to Bulgaria's than to Germany's. Today, 18 to 30-year-olds are the first Britons to earn less than their parents. Houses cost more here than in any other OECD country. We have the highest energy prices in the developed world. Our heavy industry has more than halved since 2003. Our service sector is exposed to AI. 1 in 5 working Brits are now not working at all. Our debt is the highest it's been since the 60s. Our tax burden, the highest since the 50s. We're spending more on debt interest than on defence and schools combined. In 2012, 1 in 20 people who went to A&E waited more than 4 hours. Now it's 8 times that. 1 in 5 school kids are persistently absent. 93% of crime goes unresolved. The courts are backlogged. The prisons are overflowing. Our army is the smallest it's been since Napoleonic times. 193,000 people have come here on small boats since 2018. Last year, 1 illegal migrant raped a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. Terrorists have broken into Britain on small boats. And we're living through the most profound change to our population in our nation's history. Net migration is 100 times higher in the 25 years after 1997 than in the 25 years before it. 1 in 5 in Britain weren't born here. Many are not working or are doing low-paid work. Just 1 in 20 of 2022's migrants were net contributors. Countless communities in less than 25 years have become totally unrecognisable. The police, as we've seen this week, can't even police some of our largest cities. Now, my constituents in Newark feel this decline every day. It's a great historic town. It is the honour of my life to represent it and to represent them in Parliament. They are the best of our country. They are men and women who are getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 a.m., out the door, to work in distribution centres and factories, grafting all week, but finding nothing left over for something nice with the kids on the weekends. Their bills, their taxes are surging. Their money is taken to fund hotels for those here illegally in our country, or the lifestyle of the guy down the road who everyone knows could be working but isn't working. I challenge anyone to argue other than that Britain is completely broken. Those that came before us built a great country, the greatest country in the world, but we are set to lose it. We will, for certain, if this government gets re-elected. A suicidal energy policy, crushing workers to fund scroungers on benefits, unions running our public services, payouts to terrorists, prosecutions of veterans, the bravest of the brave, 900,000 migrants in their first year, 65,000 of them illegally, ending jury trials, cancelling elections, giving away our territory, and 35 billion quid for the privilege. These people run Britain as if they hate it. But whilst this government is accelerating our decline, they didn't begin it. We've had 20 to 30 years of this. And why has it happened? Because the two main parties are rotten. They are no longer fit for purpose. They both broke Britain, and neither can fix it. It's a conclusion about the Conservative Party that has pained me to reach, because I've been a member of this party since I was 16 years old. I've served it for most of my adult life. I have countless good friends in the party, not least my own members in Newark. They are the most decent, patriotic people I know. And I respect, I cherish the party's contribution to our country, the party of Pitt and Peel, of Churchill and Thatcher. But our country is in a precarious, dangerous position. And my first loyalty, our first loyalty, must be to our country. Turning it around will require each and every one of us to speak the truth. And not just to speak it, but to act. What's the truth? Both Labour and the Conservatives broke Britain, and both are now dominated by those without the competence or the backbone needed to fix it. Both parties, if judged by their own actions, are committed to a set of ideas that have failed and are failing Britain. Labour started mass migration, but the Conservatives ramped it up. After 2019, the Conservatives almost left us without a border. 5 million came, 3/4 not to work. When I was Minister for Immigration in late 2022, I fought colossal fights for reductions in legal migration alongside Suella Braverman. There were 23 people in cabinet back then. Just 1 or 2 others were with us. Most of the party ultimately wanted what they viewed as cheap labour. And it's the same on illegal migration. Blair enshrined the ECHR into British law. He put the so-called human rights of illegal migrants, of terrorists, of criminals, above our national security. But so did the last Conservative government. I will never forget, attending a cabinet meeting in Downing Street, where a plan to stop the boats was signed off But everyone, to a man and a woman round that table, knew in their hearts it was not going to work. Some even joked about it. I left Downing Street that night, resolved to resign from the cabinet. And I've never forgotten that. And it isn't just immigration. Let me be very clear. In 2008, Miliband legislated that we put major cuts to our emissions above having cheap and reliable energy in our country. For the poorest, for our heavy industry, for each and every business in our land. What did the Conservative Party do? It didn't just keep and execute his plan, it doubled down on it with insane net zero targets. And now, Ed Miliband is back, and he's gladly picked it up again. Immediately after the last election, I said, I think more than anybody else in the Conservative Party, the truth about the last Conservative government. The day after the general election, I said the Conservative Party had failed in government, that there was hardly a principle they didn't betray. Hard taxes, they were left at a 70-year high. Sound money, well, the debt tripled. Defence, utterly hollowed out. Work should pay, welfare exploded. Law and order, prisons overflowed. In betraying its principles, the Conservative Party betrayed its voters, its members, and the men and women who elect me in Newark and Nottinghamshire. And let's be very clear with ourselves. This didn't just happen. It wasn't bad luck. It's because over time, most of the party in Westminster lost its way. The principles were betrayed because a critical mass don't believe in those principles at all. After the last election, I hoped, like others, that the Conservative Party would change, reckon with our mistakes, with humility, that it would repent. I said this after the election, and I fought for it. I fought for it every day. That's why I stood to be leader of the Conservative Party. That's why I picked myself up the day after I lost the leadership of the Conservative Party and kept fighting, because I hoped that it would be possible. But over the last year, I've realized that I was naive. It hasn't happened. Most of the Conservative Party in Westminster are in denial, or worse, they're being dishonest about what the party's done. At a recent shadow cabinet debate, a conversation broke out. The question was put to the group, is Britain broken? I said instinctively, it's broken. Almost everyone said, it's not broken. And we were told, that is the party line. A few had a third position. It is broken, but we can't say so, because the Conservative Party broke it. If they won't admit publicly to you, the British people, what they broke, what possible faith can you have in them to fix it? The Conservative Party in Westminster isn't sorry, it doesn't get it, it hasn't changed, it won't change, it can't change. Now, the people I'm about to mention are all decent people. But because I'm here today, I need to explain myself. I owe that to you, the public, and to the people who elect me. Look at the top table. The Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, has rightly attacked Labour for hiking taxes to fund more scrounging. But there's just one problem. He was the cabinet minister who oversaw the explosion of the welfare bill. And it was him who blocked the reforms that are needed. Priti Patel, the shadow foreign secretary, created the very migration system that enabled 5 million migrants to come here, the greatest failure of any British government in the post-war period. When asked about this last year, she defended her actions. She doesn't believe she did anything wrong. Now look, I respect Kemi, but I don't trust the Conservative Party on immigration. Just 2 current Conservative MPs voted with me against the fraudulent plan to stop the boats. 2 out of all the Conservative Party. Last year, I said the rape gang disgrace was in part because people with medieval attitudes towards women and girls had been allowed into our country. Would you believe it? Several Conservative MPs complained about me for speaking out. They said I was wrong and I shouldn't be saying that about the record of the last Conservative government. Over Christmas, I instinctively saw the news that the anti-British, anti-Semitic terrorist sympathiser, El Fatah, coming here to live in our country and enjoy the generosity of our people was wrong, and I spoke out against it. Let me tell you, several figures in the Conservative Party were angry at me. They said, and I quote, "It exposed the party to criticism for having granted him citizenship in 2021. The fact is the Conservative Party is so compromised that it cannot speak for the country. It cannot oppose Labour's madness. It is not fit for purpose." So yes, I'm glad Kemi has made getting rid of the rule of European judges Conservative Party policy. But I know better than anybody else, from the leadership campaign, at least 2/3 of Conservative MPs oppose this. They told me that privately. Some of them said so publicly. There have been no Damascene conversions. There's not a traffic jam on the road to Damascus. Over the last few weeks, in meetings and in calls, I told Kemi and her team what I've told you all today. The Conservative Party needed to change fundamentally, starting by acknowledging the state of Britain and owning up to the role we played in getting Britain to this point. I respect Kemi, but on all those issues, we were in different places. Let me be clear, they've doubled down. I can't kid myself anymore. The party hasn't changed, and it won't. The bulk of the party don't get it. They don't have the stomach for the radical change that Britain needs. In opposition, it's easy to paper over these cracks, but the divisions, the delusions are still there. And if we don't get the next government right, Britain will likely slip beyond the point of repair. Everything is on this. Everything is on this decision. I can't, in good conscience, stick with a party that's failed so badly, that isn't sorry, that hasn't changed, that I know in my heart can't deliver what's needed. That is why I resolved to leave. Because Nigel has stood consistently and very often alone for what's needed. Ending mass migration, for cheap energy, for cutting waste and taxes and red tape. Now, I don't agree with everything that he's ever said, and he definitely won't have agreed with everything that I've ever said. But in retrospect, I see that in this period, when 2 main parties were failing Britain, Nigel was all too often a lone voice of common sense. When the first boat started crossing, who was in the channel saying that it was outrageous? They laughed at him. Well, they're not laughing now. Nigel has stood for the real change that we need now as a country for over a decade, frankly, for most of my adult lifetime. If anyone puts party allegiance, personal ambition to one side, he is obviously the right person to lead the movement for change Britain needs. Recognizing the situation our country is in, I reached out to Nigel in September. I could see then the Conservative Party wasn't changing, couldn't fix Britain. I didn't know that I was going to defect. In fact, we didn't discuss that. I just knew the responsible thing to do, the honest thing to do for me, was to explore all options. From the conversations that we've had since, quietly, and from what I've seen Nigel and Richard and Zia and Lee and Danny and Sarah say and do publicly, I am convinced that Nigel and Reform will deliver the real change we need. Nigel knows, Reform knows, the extraordinary challenges that Britain faces require a comprehensive plan to turn our country around. That'll be a major priority for this year. As Nigel has said, we will set out to build and recruit the team needed to execute that plan. Yes, a few people will come from parties who have realised that those parties have lost their way, who unquestionably back the real change that Reform will bring. But far more importantly, people will come from outside of politics, people who've done great things in business, in our schools, in our hospitals, our prisons, our armed forces, people the two political parties have locked out and ignored for far too long. For all those reasons, today, I am proud to join the more than 270,000 people who are members of Reform UK, to back Nigel, to join this incredible movement, a national movement that will pool Britain's talents, experience, and expertise, put previous differences to one side, and deliver the real change we need. Turn our country around. At this hour, with Britain on the brink, in real danger, this is what we must do. If you agree with us, don't sit on the sidelines. Britain is broken. Britain needs reform, and reform needs you. Thank you all very much indeed.
Robert, thank you very much indeed, and welcome on behalf of 270,000 of us. That was passionate, it was full of energy, conviction, and determination, and that's the one great thing. Robert is determined to make a very, very big change. Now, unsurprisingly, we have a list of questions. We're going to begin with Chris Mason, BBC News.
Thank you both. Chris Mason, BBC News. Mr. Jenrick, can you clear a few things up for us? When did you resolve to make this move? Because your new party leader was saying that perhaps as recently as this morning there was 60-40 as to whether or not you wanted to defect. And here you are, and you were late to your own defection. So precisely when did you make that shot, particularly given how scathing you've just been of former colleagues that you were sitting around the shadow cabinet table with just yesterday, and so address their argument that says that this is a spectacular act of treachery. And to you, Mr. Farage, the critique has become familiar with the pattern of defections that Reform is becoming in the eyes of some Conservative 2.0. Given you've just recruited yet another former Conservative and yet another former Conservative minister who was in a government that was spectacularly thrown out by the British people, convince our audience that you're not becoming Conservative 2.0, because that's increasingly what it looks like, isn't it?
Well, I mean, one thing Robert Jenrick has done, he's actually said in the last few weeks that he's ashamed that Al-Fatah got citizenship back in 2021. It's funny how a lot of roads lead back to James Cleverly, but hey. And he said, you know, he literally, you know, he's in sackcloth and ashes over what they did. Why do I trust him and not many of the others? Because he resigned from the government over this, knowing that Rwanda was a farce, all the while we were stuck within the ECHR. And that was the moment at which I thought, this guy actually has changed. You know, before that, we'd have disagreed, a decade ago on many, many things. We are, by the way, there are plenty that want to come that we don't want, but we're bringing people who can add. And I've said to you already, if people want to come, they better let me know soon, because after May the 7th, the doors are closed. Doors for defections are closed after May the 7th. May the 7th is this vital, pivotal, most important electoral moment between now and the next general election. And you might have seen yesterday, Chris, that a Green councillor joined us, and there'll be a well-known Labour figure that joins us next week. So it isn't just Conservatives, but the reality is that we are replacing the Conservative Party as the opposition to the Labour government in this country.
Very good. Well, Chris, let me answer your question. Look, I gave this a great deal of thought, as you'd expect. This is a party that I joined when I was 16 years of age, just after the 1997 general election. And believe me, there weren't many Tories in Wolverhampton in 1997. And I've stood by the party ever since, through good times and bad. And I've been on a journey that a lot of people in the country have been on, frankly, where they've seen over time the failures of Labour and Conservative, the country progressively getting into a worse and worse situation. I walked into a Home Office in the autumn of 2022 that was in ashes, that literally could not deliver the most basic function of the British state, securing our borders. And I worked as hard as I could to improve that situation. When I lost faith in the Conservative government and the Prime Minister, I resigned. The only person who resigned on principle from the last Conservative government. And then after the last general election, I made an argument to the Conservative Party, and in some respects haven't stopped making that argument, that it failed the country, that it needed to be painfully honest about the mistakes that it had made, to really show to the public that it was sincere in that, and then to set out the serious answers to the big challenges that face our country right now. Over time, I've come to the painful conclusion to me that the Conservative Party is not sorry, or at least many in Westminster are not sorry, can't change and won't change, and that I would be letting down the people that I represent in Newark and the country, frankly, if I put my own personal ambition. Do I want to be leader of the Conservative Party? Do I want to sit around the shadow cabinet table above the most important thing to me and to everyone else, which is how do we get rid of this failed Labour government, and how do we replace it with a government that can actually fix this country and turn things around for my children, my grandchildren, and my constituents? And yes, I have resolved to do that. I resolved to do that some time ago. And I came to the conclusion that everyone who shares my conviction has to put aside personal loyalties, has to put aside party political considerations, and get behind Nigel. Because after the next general election, the choice is going to be this: Starmer, or whichever non-entity replaces him, or Nigel Farage. And it does not take me one blink of an eyelid to say to you that I want Nigel to be our Prime Minister after the next general election. That is the only way we will save our country. And so patriotic people who share my views have to rally behind Nigel and reform right now.
Right at the moment, Rob is favourite to be the next Conservative leader.
Well, I'm not sure about that right now.
Well, you were this morning, after the May the 7th catastrophe. I don't think most journalists in the room have understood what May the 7th actually means for the Conservative Party, and interestingly, for the Labour Party as well. And he's given up that opportunity to come and do this, and I'm thrilled. Christopher Hope, GB News.
Chris Hope, GB News. To Robert Jenrick first. What's the deal? Politics is about deals. Have you been promised a job by Nigel Farage, maybe Shadow Chancellor in your party? And how are you feeling? You sound emotional. I remember you campaigning in Newark against Nigel Farage back then in UKIP. I mean, it's a big political journey you've been on. How are you feeling today? And to Nigel Farage, to you, how should Reform voters trust you? You're bringing in these senior Tories from a party you spent years attacking. Are you losing trust by doing this?
Well, Chris, let me go first. Nothing has been offered. I've joined this party as the 270-something thousandth member, and I'm proud to do so. And to work not just with Nigel, but with a set of people I've come to know over a period of time, some for a very long time, like my constituency neighbour Lee Anderson, others like Richard and Sarah and Zia, I see Layla over there, who have built this party from nothing. And I'm just here to play my part, to lend my support and experience to making it the greatest success that it possibly can be for the sake of the country. Yes, it's a sad day for me to leave a party that I've been a part of for so long. It's sad also because I know there are very good people within the Conservative Party. There are good members of Parliament. There are good councillors. There are good members of the party. More than anyone in the current Conservative Party, I went around the country meeting them. Last year, I did over 100 events. I met more Conservative Party members than anyone. I know their views. I know their frustrations, not just with the state of the party, but above all with the state of the country. And so my message to them is reform is here for anyone who shares this conviction that the country needs to be fixed and turned around. And we can't let party loyalty get in the way of fixing our country. That's what really matters.
I believe today's a big day, Chris, in the realignment of the genuine centre-right of this country. I think Rob Cumming will bring a lot more people and voters to us. I think this is actually a very big moment. And that's why we talked about it for a long time. And as I say, you know, going back perhaps a little bit to Chris Mason's question earlier, you know, we'd agreed in principle this would happen, but it wasn't going to happen today or tomorrow or next week, and it might not have happened because deals, you know, all the time in life you talk about deals, they either come to fruition for a variety of reasons or they don't. He will be joining our frontline team. You will see over the course of the next few weeks, jobs are allocated to very senior people within the party. It's part of our evolution, part of our structure, part of what we're going to be presenting to the public. And what does he bring to us? Frontline experience. Our biggest weakness is we haven't had people who've actually been there, in cabinet, in number 10, understand how these things work, understand, frankly, what some of the barriers. So understanding how the system works, maybe understanding why the system doesn't work, because they've seen it at first hand. So they bring experience. And in policy terms, there is no question that Jenrick and I are on exactly the same page on virtually everything today, if not always, in the past. Thank you. Rob Powell, Sky News.
Hi, thank you, Rob Powell, Sky News. Mr. Jenrick, you've said it's the honour of your life to serve the people of Newark. Your association says that you've betrayed them today. If you respect your constituents so much, why not call a by-election and stand as a Reform candidate? And Mr. Farage, I think by my count, Robert Jenrick's the 7th member of Boris Johnson's government to join your party in recent months. You say you're a new reforming force in politics. How can you claim that if, by your own definition, you're bringing in so many people that cause the mess you're trying to clear up?
The five-star movement in Italy, launched by Beppe Grillo, the famous Italian comedian, and I served with his people in the European Parliament. He said, we will only have people standing for Parliament who have never been involved in politics at any level ever. And they got lots of votes and lots of MPs. And they went into coalition government. And guess what happened? It was a complete catastrophe because no one knew what to do. And I am proud of the fact that we're going to have candidates standing from all walks of life, all different disciplines. Very, very few what you would consider professional politicians. But we have to have some. We've even seen it in our county councils. You know, Richard's been going around the country. Lancashire, for example, we have a guy who'd run a district council for years, knows what he's doing. He was able to go into Lancashire County, get a grip of it on day one, whereas for others, it's taking a bit longer. If we win the next general election, the public won't give us very long. The public will say, you guys are the last chance saloon. Unless you guys can get control of our borders, unless you guys can start gripping the issues that really affect our lives, you know, we'll lose faith in you, perhaps very, very quickly. So we need the experience, and I think that's absolutely vital.
Well, and to your point, Rob, I haven't seen whatever this central office press release is that you're referring to, but look, I don't intend to call a by-election. But I'll say this to you. I was elected at the last general election against every poll, all the MRP polls and whatever that journalists like yourself were putting out. And that, I believe, was because my constituents knew that I stood up for them. I was willing to do things which are difficult, sometimes be very independent-minded. They respected the fact that I had resigned from the last Conservative government. In fact, there were a lot of Reform voters in Newark who decided to bite their tongue and not vote reform and to vote for me at the last general election precisely because of that. And my constituents know that I'll continue to do that, to be the strongest possible voice for them and for the issues that they care about. And, above all, to hold this failing Labour government to account. The thing that unites most people in my constituency is this. They want Starmer out, and they want a good government in that's going to fix our country. And I am convinced that this is the only way that we can achieve that, and I must play my part in that.
Shihab Khan, ITV News.
Shihab Khan, ITV News. Robert Jenrick, my first question is to you. You've been very scathing of your previous colleagues. You've said that the Conservative Party contributed to the breaking of Britain, yet in that period you served in a number of roles. You were Housing Secretary, you were a Health Minister, you were an Immigration Minister, you were in the Treasury. My question to you is, did you contribute with your actions and did you play a part in what you say is the breaking of Britain? And Nigel Farage, my question to you is, the man sitting next to you is clearly very ambitious. He ran to be leader of the Conservative Party. Can you trust that he doesn't want to be leader?
I think we've just given away the idea of being leader of a political party, if I may say that. Look, no one joins Reform unless they believe that Nigel Farage is the best man, not just to lead this party, but to lead our country. That is why I've done this. That's why I've put aside my own personal ambition, whatever the bookies say about being leader of the Tory party. I've done it because I think Nigel is the man to lead this country. And I'm going to work every day for the next 3.5 years, or whenever the general election is, it may come sooner than that, to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Gary Gibbon, Channel 4 News.
Thank you very much. Do you think, Robert Jenrick, this is an inflection point for the Conservative Party, that if you'd become leader, first attempt or even a second attempt if that had happened, there might have been a pre-election pact, a possibility of that with Reform. The chances of that are now zero. And Nigel Farage, the question you were just asked, I mean, a few people have been texting me listening to Robert Jenrick saying that sounded like a leadership bid. Would he make a good successor?
Well, if a very good speech is a leadership bid, I want a lot more of them.
Yeah, Nigel will speak for himself and for the party, but I don't believe there is likely to be or should be a pact or a deal with the Conservative Party. The message I've just delivered to you today is that I think the Conservative Party has failed to understand the mistakes that it made, has not repented for that. Why would anyone in this country hand the keys back to these people to take it forward and hope that they would fix the country? That is my painful conclusion of the last few years. And to your point about, or the point that was made a moment ago about my own record, look, I think the Conservative Party failed in government. Nobody has been more honest about that than myself. There were battles that I fought to build more homes, let down by Boris Johnson, to get immigration down, let down by Rishi Sunak. But did I contribute to mistakes? I'm very open and honest to say, yes, I did. That's why we've got to make sure this never happens again. And I believe Reform is the best way to ensure that doesn't happen and we can actually fix the country.
I thought your story about the recent Shadow Cabinet meeting was very revealing. You know, they debate, is Britain broken? A couple say yes. Most say, good Lord, no, everything's absolutely marvellous. And then some say, well, we can't admit it because we actually contributed to it. And so I'm actually, yes, I am prepared to accept those who put their hands up and say we failed. And bear in mind, Gary, I put a level of trust in the Conservative Party back in 2019 at that election. And I, like many millions of others in Britain, feel betrayed by them. And you only do deals, you only shake hands with people you trust. And we are going to replace them. And they will cease to be, I repeat, a national political party after May the 7th this year. Just you watch.
And if I may just say on your question about an inflection point, I do think we are at an inflection point. Perhaps a slightly different one to the one that you were suggesting, but there are many millions of people in this country who voted Conservative at the last general election. They were often doing so through gritted teeth. Perhaps it was a force of habit. Perhaps they hoped that the Conservative Party would learn its lessons and change. My message to those people is you need to rally behind Nigel and Reform now. because it is the only way we will get rid of this failing Labour government, and it is the only way that we will get in a government that is capable, has the will and determination to actually fix the country. And that, I'm afraid, does mean the end of the Conservative Party. It means people who share our values coming together to support this man and to make sure that he's our next Prime Minister.
Yeah, they're going the way of the Liberal Party in the mid-1920s. That's actually what's happening before our very eyes. Martina Bett from The Sun.
Thank you very much. Martina Bett from The Sun. Robert, I was wondering if you could give any more details on how the events this morning unfolded. How did you get caught? Tory party chairman Kevin Holyroke says that it was someone of your inner circle that sold you out. Who was it? Any details on that would be good. Thank you.
Look, honestly, I'm not in the slightest bit interested in who might have said this or that. Why don't you go and ask Kevin Holyroke or Kemi Badenoch what they have heard on the grapevine? No one does this lightly. I've been a member of this party since I was 16 years of age. I woke up this morning as the Conservative Home Poll's most popular shadow cabinet member, exactly. The bookie's favourite to be the next leader of the Conservative Party. Do you think you do this lightly? No. I did this having given it the greatest thought about what I think was best, not just for me personally, but actually for the country. And that is what matters today. How do we ensure that we fix our country? And there may be some people in politics, many in the present Conservative Party, who don't think Britain is broken, who think that everything's going to be all right. I don't think that. And I would be letting down the men and women that I represent if I said to them, you've had 2 or 3 lost decades where your wages have stagnated, your kids can't get on the housing ladder, the NHS and our public services are failing, migration is through the roof, crime is getting worse and worse on the streets. But you know what? I'm just going to sit back and allow us to waste another decade, 2 more decades. No, I'm not prepared to do that. So today was a difficult decision for me. It's not one that I took lightly, but I am convinced in my heart that this is the right thing to do for the country.
James Hill, Spectator.
Thank you. Mr. Jenrick, last summer you called for Zia Youssef to be booted out of Reform about a tweet, and there was a whole long-running Twitter battle with him. How are you going to smooth over relations with the new colleagues?
Look, in politics, people say lots of different things, and whatever Zia or Nigel, anyone may have said, worse things have been said about me in my life. The most important thing is that we work together successfully as a team, and that is exactly what I intend to do. I have the highest respect, not just for Nigel, or else I wouldn't have joined his party, but for Richard and for Zia and Lee and Sarah and Danny, those who built this party. And I'm just the latest member, the latest recruit to their cause. And so I'm just going to do everything I can to help and to support them to make sure this is a success.
Zia feels utterly betrayed by the 2019 Conservative government. And he wears it on his sleeve, and he pretty much tends to blame every single human being that was involved in it. But I'm teaching him the values of forgiveness. And it'll be okay, I promise you. I'm just the softie in Reform, you know. I mean, that's just the way it is. Ellie Wheatley from Guido Fawkes.
Farage, if Kemi Badenoch has a change of heart and decides to defect, would you let her into Reform too? And Jenrick, if you had to put a number on it, how many Tory MPs do you think will follow you to Reform?
Well, not the Lib Dems. There's about 70 of them are Liberal Democrats, so they wouldn't come, would they? Look, let's just wait and see what happens. Let me just reiterate the point that I made a couple of times. If there are Tory, Labour figures out there that want to come to Reform, don't think you're joining us on the back of a massive success on May the 7th. Come and join us and help us in that journey to make May the 7th the big day. All right? So that's the very, very simple message. It was said during the war that if Hitler landed in a parachute on the lawn of number 10 Downing Street, that Churchill wouldn't have a clue what to do. And you just asked me a question that I can't really answer. I don't think Kemi Badenoch is going to be applying to join Reform UK. I don't think she's my biggest fan. It simply isn't going to happen. And anyway, she's going to be leader on May the 7th, so she won't qualify, will she? Right, fine. Let's go. Lucy White, Bloomberg.
Thank you. You talked earlier, Nigel, about deals and deals to be done between yourself and Robert Jenrick. Mr. Jenrick, what were you hoping to get out of that deal? And do you feel like you might have given away some of, or you might have lost some of your leverage by this being leaked if you were hoping to gain a better position?
Well, that would depend whether he was dealing with an honourable person or not, wouldn't it? OK, thank you. We'll move on. A deal is where you talk about the terms upon which someone joins, what they might be able to do for you. I haven't offered him a rank, I haven't offered him a title, I haven't offered him a position, I haven't offered him money or anything like that. We were in conversation, actively in conversation, as to what the best fit was for Robert as part of the front team, joining the people you see in front of you. And a cynic would say his position was weakened, but you know what? I'm carrying on the conversation. Now it's done in exactly the same spirit as I did before. Let us go on to Emilio from Politico. A spy.
So, I mean, you're condemning the Conservatives for not accepting that they broke Britain. You have sort of touched on this a little bit just now, but I mean, are you accepting that you are part of that group that broke Britain? Which elements would you say that you had a hand in breaking? And are you going to apologise to the public? That's what you're saying the Conservatives need to do. Surely the public needs to hear you apologise for your role in that. And Nigel, I mean, you're both kind of accepting, like, completely accepting that the Tories failed, that the Tories broke Britain. So you're accepting a failure. Is that the kind of Conservative that you want helping you in government, really?
If people are honest enough in public life to put their hands up, to say they got it wrong, to effectively say they're ashamed, that's what Jenrick said. I'm ashamed. How much more do you want from him? What do you want, sackcloth and ashes? You know, he's already said he's ashamed of some of the things that government did. I think he's pretty much been down that path. And I want people who recognise what went wrong. I want people who understand what re-establishing that bond of trust between the electors and the elected is. And I want people who've got experience of what it's like to live, breathe and work on the front line.
It's the experience of failing in government.
Well, you know what? Most people who succeed in business have failed in business to begin with. And maybe that's something this country needs to think about a little bit more. That the road to great success very often is littered with failures along the way. The clever people recognise those failures, adapt and change. And there's little doubt that in terms of political conviction and thought, that Robert Jenrick has changed enormously over the course of the last decade. I don't think you need to defend yourself any more than you have, frankly. Well, I think he's... look, if he says I'm ashamed of what we did as a government, as I say, I don't know what more you want. David Williamson from The Express.
Thank you. One of the questions which will be asked is, the right is now clearly split, and the battle between the Tories and Reform is going to be personally bitter. Do you fear that this is actually going to leave the door open, if there is no possibility of a pact, to an alliance between Labour, the Greens, the Lib Dems and whoever else might be in at the next election? And just lastly, we've obviously seen the entry into Reform of people who were devoted fans of Boris Johnson. Would you like to see the blonde bombshell here?
I don't think after the Boris wave that's very likely, do you? And if you say the right is split, I'll tell you this, David, it's a lot less split this afternoon than it was this morning. And it wasn't especially split this morning, given the very big gap that's been there now for 6 months in terms of support between the Conservative Party and us. And much of that support for the Conservative Party comes from people who are busy with jobs, mortgages, 2.3 kids and a dog. And their news intake is a few minutes a day or week. They don't think about elections or politics. They're too busy struggling on. But when they come to see that actually we genuinely are the only people with a chance of turfing out Starmer or whoever succeeds him, you will see a lot more of those supposed Conservative voters coming to us. What you've seen today is actually a very fascinating, historically perhaps significant, reuniting of people on the centre right. Okay, let's keep moving on. Let's go to Tim Stanley from a Daily Tea.
I've had a sex change.
Okay.
Actually, Camilla Tominey from the Daily Tea. Can you just clear up, Mr. Jenrick, the timeline on your defection? Because I wrote a column about this on Friday, and there was an exchange of messages with, let's call it sources close to you, insisting that you were never, ever going to defect.
It's no surprise that if you phone me, I don't have to tell you everything you want for your column, Camilla.
Well, no, I'd already written the column at that point, but I just wanted clarity, like Chris Mason at the BBC and all the other journalists here, that when you said you were never, ever going to defect last Friday, that you were in fact lying, and therefore the accusation that you're untrustworthy may be true. That was my question.
Camilla, I'm very sorry to disabuse you, since I thought you were a very experienced journalist, but politicians don't have to reply to all the text messages that they get sent by journalists. And I wasn't going to give you the exclusive news of my decision, Camilla. But if you're asking me the question about honesty, nobody in the Conservative Party was more honest about the failures of the last Conservative government than me. What is the most honest thing to do, Camilla? To stay in a party knowing that its principal policy on Rwanda was a failure, or to resign from its cabinet? What is the most honest thing to do for myself and the country but to say this party is going nowhere? And if you really want to turn it around, ensure that the country is fixed, then you have to rally behind Nigel and reform. That is what I've done.
Aggie from LBC.
Thank you very much, Aggie from LBC. First to Robert, has your dream of becoming a party leader completely gone, or do you think at some point when, or if, Nigel Farage retires, you might have that dream once again? And also, what happened
I thought I got away from all the leadership speculation.
What happened to the person
If one
who...
good thing came about today, it was that.
What happened to the person who left that speech lying around? Do they still work for you? And finally, to Nigel, isn't it embarrassing that last year you said... Robert Jenrick is a fraud. I've always thought so. And have you guys had to talk about that?
No, we haven't really, because I did think that for a very, very long time. I wasn't sure that his conversion was genuine. I thought perhaps he was doing it for political advantage within the Conservative Party to become leader. I had my doubts, but I've begun to believe since the summer that actually this guy has been on a genuine journey, is viewing the country very differently. And as I said earlier, the thing that really swung it for me is he was the only principled resignation from the last government. And when people who fought very, very hard to get into Parliament, to rise up the ladder into ministerial position, senior ministerial position, for people to resign on points of principle, there are very, very few, I tell you what, Aggie, there are very, very few people in public life who do that these days. And that's what convinced me that this guy was in the same camp that I'm in.
And look, nobody leaves a party which they're the bookies' favourite to be leader out of ambition. You do this out of conviction. I've done this today because I'm convinced it's the right thing to do for my constituents and for the country. And that's it.
Thank you. Max Kendick from The Times, please.
I'm not interested in that. That doesn't matter.
Max from The Times.
Thank you, Nigel. This defection, the Tories say, wasn't meant to happen for a while, and there was some grand plan up your sleeve to have some kind of disruptive event for it to happen instead. What was that? And Robert, you failed to become leader of your party, and now none of your closest Tory allies have said they're following suit with your defection. Has this been a bit of a botched operation, or are you going to trigger a whole chunk of more defections?
If I'd planned a disruptive event, I cannot imagine I could have stage managed it better than Kemi Badenoch has managed to do for us today. This is a supremely disruptive event. I've talked over the years, in different incarnations, to many people about joining whether it was UKIP or the Brexit Party or Reform, elected politicians. You know, I had some defections back in the UKIP days. Do you know what? I had a lot that I thought were over the line and at the last minute didn't happen. So, yes, we were in advanced talks. Yes, I was keen to get Robert on our team. And yes, we thought and wargamed what we might do. But it's never done until it's done. But Kemi's helped bring us together. Isn't that wonderful?
Very good. Sorry, what's your question to me?
Are there more people who are going to come over?
No, I don't know. That's up to them, isn't it? Obviously, it's ultimately a matter for Nigel and the
long.
party to decide whether they want them or
Haven't
not.
got long. Deadline.
There are some good people in the Conservative Party, and if you share our conviction, then Reform obviously welcomes people.
Mind you, there could be a queue downstairs as we speak. I don't know. Let's go to Helen at PA Media. I'm getting there's about 5 more.
Hello. Mr. Jenrick, Nigel has said that you were talking about potentially defecting, but that had the events of today not happened, that may have never come about. So can you confirm
I had resolved to leave.
So when you woke up this morning, you thought you would leave at some point?
Well, I didn't think I was going to leave today, but I had resolved to leave the party, and that was, as I've said, something I'd given a great deal of thought to over a very long time, and the fact that it's happened a little bit sooner, so what? In fact, it means I can get on with trying to help Nigel, help Reform to succeed slightly sooner.
And how many of your Tory colleagues have you spoken to about defecting?
No one.
None at all?
No.
And Nigel, you've spoken about a Labour defector coming next week.
Yeah, come and join me next Tuesday. It'll be great fun.
What level are we talking? Is it an
I
elected
can't remember.
politician?
Come along on Tuesday. It's open to all of you. It's going to be marvellous fun. Right, very good. Let's go to David at the Financial Times.
Hi there. For Robert, first of all, you've spoken quite glowingly of Reform and of Nigel today, but no political party is fully formed. They always evolve. So what one political change would you like to see within Reform before the next general election? And for Nigel, you've put this deadline on people coming across before May 7th. Are you hoping at this point to trigger a tsunami of defections?
Well, I think we're putting a message out, aren't we? That we want people, if they're thinking about joining us, we want people that join us to add to what we do. And adding would be putting the shoulder to the wheel. And despite whatever the cancellations are, that we'll finish up with, there are still going to be a vast number of elections, thousands of seats, probably even with cancellations, 4,000 seats up for grabs on May the 7th. So if you want to come and join us, come and chat to us. There's no guarantee we'll accept you. We've rejected several. We really have rejected several that we just did not think would fit. But if you want to come after we succeed on May the 7th, then we'll think that actually this trade is more about you taking from us than the other way around.
And to your question to me, David, I've just walked through the door. Give me a bit of time. But Reform has come an incredibly long way in a very short period of time, to the point that it's been leading the opinion polls a couple of hundred times now.
Yeah, no, it has.
The country is in a desperate situation. Reform is the country's last hope. The work that falls to all of us now is to ensure that we get serious, credible plans that the country can believe in, so that if we're lucky enough to win the next general election, people can have confidence that this will be very different from the failed Labour and Conservative governments of the past.
Right, 4 more. Kate from The Independent.
Hi, Kate Devlin from The Independent. Robert, you've talked a lot about being honest with the British people. So actually my question is to Nigel, if he's honest about the limitations and things that he doesn't like in Reform, will he be allowed to say so, or will he have to toe the party line?
Oh no, anybody can come and say anything they want to me. The only rule I have as leader is that we have our disagreements, we have our arguments, we have our rows behind closed doors.
I meant in public.
Or maybe over a glass of something afterwards, I don't know. But we don't have fights in public, and people in politics who have fights with me in public generally don't tend to do terribly well. Let's go to Will from the iPaper.
Hello, Will Hazel from the iPaper. Robert, you mentioned Damascene conversions earlier and said that the Tory party and your former colleagues hadn't had Damascene conversions. This is what another UK politician said about Damascene conversions last year. Don't forget, this is Robert Jenrick, this is Robert the Remainer, this is Robert that don't stand particularly for anything at all, who suddenly appears to be on this Damascene conversion. That was Nigel Farage. Is that uncomfortable?
And I said it with conviction, and I said it with passion, and I meant it.
Is that
Absolutely, I meant it.
Is that
but you know what? I'm allowed to change my mind. I'm allowed to watch the progression and the journey. And I'm a bit like Zia. I don't trust any of them naturally. They have to prove to me that they are genuinely repentant. And I think what this guy has done, with the energy that he's put into his journalism, into his YouTube videos, into his speeches in Parliament, and talking to people who know him, as I've done, people who know him socially, but outside of politics, I'm convinced that he's not that same person, all right? I'm allowed to change, I promise you, I'm allowed to change my mind.
Robert, is that uncomfortable hearing? Some of those comments are quite personal.
Oh, please.
This is politics. People say all sorts of things.
It's a
in
rough old
politics.
game, you know. Right, moving on. Dave from The Mirror.
Hi, thank you very much. Do you think your members will accept the man who opened all the hotels, all the asylum hotels, and who boasted about it in that quote?
I was the man who, with respect, I was the man who closed 100 of the asylum hotels
you
and then
very
resigned from the last
said in
Conservative
2022, I've procured more hotels. Mr. Farage shared that same comment and dubbed you a fraud as a result of it. Do you think your members will forget that? And is there a risk of this looking like someone who's trying to distance themselves from their previous actions?
Dave, you know, I don't need people to join me for the sake of it. We've actually done rather well on our own, thank you. But I'm getting people in who are apologetic, indeed ashamed of what they've done in the past, recognise what went wrong, and are determined to get it right. Are our members prepared to forgive those that apologise for past errors and promise to put their shoulder to the wheel to help us and propel us forwards? I believe the answer to that is very firmly yes. Last question, Rowena from The Guardian.
Rowena Mason from The Guardian. For Robert Jenrick, you've talked to us about honesty and trust, but you said that this morning you'd already made up your mind that you'd already resolved you were going to defect to reform. Would it then have been disingenuous for you to have carried on sitting in the shadow cabinet, knowing, taking in all that information about the Conservative Party, knowing that you were already going to go to a different political party?
Look, these things are very difficult decisions. I had resolved to leave. I had conversations with Kemi and with her senior team over the last few days, and we discussed many of the things we've talked about today. I was clear about my concerns about the way the party was going, the failures to repent for the past, the fact that the top team was the same top team who broke the country, and yet we're now supposed to believe that they're the people to fix it. And there is an honest disagreement between the two of us. It's no surprise. Had I been leader of the party, I would have done things differently to her. She knows that. I'd made the decision to go. It's the right thing to do. Might have happened a few days later. I don't know. That doesn't matter. What matters now is this the right thing to do? Yes, 100%. And I'm going to put my shoulder to the wheel to make Nigel Prime Minister and get a government that can fix the country? Yes, every day between now and the next general election.
My apologies. Tony from The Telegraph didn't come to you.
Thank you. Tony Diver from The Telegraph. Mr. Jenrick, you've made the point several times that you've defected by putting aside your own personal ambition, but isn't the truth that you've jumped from a party that's struggling to recover from its unpopularity in government to a party that's led every poll for almost a year? Wouldn't it be more honest to say that even if this is a decision that you've made on principle, you stand to do quite well out of it personally? And on a similar point to Mr. Farage, you keep talking about a deal with Robert Jenrick. You don't.
You do.
You've mentioned a deal with Robert Jenrick several times.
I was asked a question about it. I didn't mention it at all. But
you know what you're getting out of this deal. What's he getting?
What's he getting? He's getting a committed bunch of troops. He's getting an active People's Army grassroots movement out around the country with a level of energy and optimism about changing this country that has not been seen in modern British public life. And he is becoming a part of that because he wants to help change the future course and history of this country. So, yes, he has an opportunity with us to do something remarkable. What he's given up is the opportunity to be the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition in the House of Commons. So on a personal level, he's given up quite a lot. And he will find working for us, working with us, a damn sight harder work than it ever was with the party he was with previously, I promise you. Was there one more? Yes, I apologise. I'm so sorry, Claire.
That's okay. Mr. Jenrick, there are reports that you were going to bring over 2 allies with you when you defected. Are they true?
I haven't spoken to. If you're referring to Conservative MPs,
No one tells me about any of this.
I haven't spoken to any other Conservative MPs, so that can't be correct.
Right. Thank you, everybody. See you all next Tuesday. Very good. Thank you.